Welcome to Kern County Genealogy Society's meeting today. Thank you for coming out on a rainy, windy day. We appreciate it. And we have an exciting program for you. Everybody wants to know how to organize their genealogy. Everybody has their own way. But before I introduce our speaker, I'm going to ask Evie Slater to come up because she's going to introduce a new member.
Yay! And that's plural. Yay!
Oh, new members. Thank you. Okay, so welcome again, everybody. And we have, for our new members, Maureen Webb. Raise your hand, please. Welcome.
Thank you.
Gina Bacchini. Welcome. Let's see, I have Linda Foster. Oh, welcome her anyway. And let's see. Marty Richardson. Welcome wherever you are. Cecilia Reesley. Did I pronounce that right? Okay, welcome to you too. Just a couple things real quick, if you don't mind. Be sure, members, be sure and sign your name legibly because we are going to have a drawing at the end of the year. And the more you attend the meetings, each time you have a ticket put in. Okay? So do that legibly. Just make sure on the roster there that you write your name legibly. Also, membership cards are in. So please pick up your cards. Thank you. All right, as I was saying, the one thing that all genealogists want to know about is organizing. How many of you have piles at home sitting, that pile that you file horizontally? And then, of course, there's the desktop, and there's a little tiny space for you to work with the piles all around it, and you have great intentions. And if you're like me, you have a love affair going on with the printer. So you print off everything, and then it's a matter of putting it somewhere and putting it. And you see, keep accumulating, and you do intend to enter it into the computer and all this other stuff, but the pile keeps growing because there's not a lot of time, and it's much more fun to research. Well, when we were sitting in the genealogy room and we were working, I was observing Melanie Hudson, who is our presenter for today, and she had these binders, and she kept writing all this stuff, and she was so organized, and I thought, oh, I want to know what she's doing. So I asked her if she would be willing to present to us today, and she said she would, but it's pretty basic, and I said, that's okay. We can all learn from anybody. We can learn, well, we can hear something that we've heard before, and that just reminds us of something that we should be doing, but we've forgotten. And we can all learn new things from everybody. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome Melanie Hudson, who's going to share with you the way she organizes genealogy and the way it makes sense for her.
I'm not much of a public speaker, so bear with me, I'm very shy. They did catch me in there. I was working on my papers for the Daughters of the American Revolution and the Union Soldiers Group, and that's why she saw me with all the binders. I was pulling papers to get them for the application. Anyway, I'm kind of old-fashioned. I like paper. I want to see it. I don't want it on the computer. Of course, there are things on the computer, but when I started out with one binder, which didn't last long, and it evolved to a single binder for each set of grandparents. And I found that's been going on for a while, so that's worked pretty good. But what I've done is just like, I'm just going to tell you the basics of how I put it together. I've been using the 1-inch binders for each set of grandparents, and you can always expand to larger as you go along. I label everything to be read easily because I had probably had cataracts at one point and couldn't see very well, but I love it now because it's easy from far away. I've dedicated one 5-shelf bookshelf just for my binders, and I have a 2-drawer lateral file for the files, and that has worked pretty well. But I can put everything I need on that person that I've gathered in their binder behind and their name, under their name. The binders, I put them together consistently. I was a secretary at Victual College for 40 years. I was required to file paperwork, lots of paperwork, but I was also required to find it in a couple of minutes. And it could be 20 years old. So I, out of necessity, developed a way to file. Very simple, logical, but very simple. You have to keep it simple. And this is how this evolved. So when I do things, when you do them, you put them together, do it consistently. So whenever you're putting a binder, say my grandparents. This is my paternal side. Everything that I have done on them, if you look, you have your grandfather in the front and your grandmother in the back. You label everything, easy to read, easy to see, and everything you've gathered on them, birth, death, marriage, anything that you find on them, it'll be in this binder. Now, it may eventually, like I said, grow out of this, but I can just switch this to a bigger binder later on. But with them being up on the shelf, they're always at my fingertips. I have no, this is, like I said, it's very simple, and it's a little old-fashioned, but it works very well, and it's all at my fingertips. As a secretary, like I said, I couldn't take the time to look through 25 years worth of papers. I had to be able to go and pull it right away and give it to the boss. So I kind of based that, it's just so simple. I told her this is so simple, it's just, I don't know if this will do anybody any good. But there's so many, every kind of research you do on that one person will be put in that binder. I mean, I've developed, and on the second page, the handout, my own biography sheet on every single person I've done research on. And I'm not against the software and all that, but I try to use it, and it changed quickly. It never included what I wanted on it. So I learned, right away, I'm going to use my own sheet and put everything I found on that person on that sheet. And that includes all the sources. So all I have to do is pull that binder, look at the sheet, and see, oh, do I have, the 1880 census on this person? Oh, I do. Here's the page, and here's the information. So I developed that sheet, and that sheet goes in each of the binders in the very front. So it says everything I need to know. It tells everything, their parents, their sisters, their brothers, their just everything you find can go. You can put a sheet of paper in that binder, and when you need to look at it and decide, well, I've got this, or I know this, you just look at the binder. There are some things that I haven't done that I want to do. I've got plans, a family group sheet on every single family. I was writing those out. I finally found the program where you can actually type them in, and I will be working on those to put a typed, nice group sheet in on each one of those. I also, there are a lot of things you kind of just adapt to what you're doing. If the, say, I've had several that lost their first wife, their husband lost first wife, and they have a second one. I also put that in there, information on that person. If they're not your direct relation, then of course they're not going to be in that binder, but you can put them in behind the husband, and that way I can keep track of all of that information that same way. Oh, and you can do that with the children that aren't directly related to you. If I have pictures of that person, I make a paper copy. I don't put an original in, but I make a paper copy. So again, you're looking at something that, hey, this is what they look like, here's their death, their marriage, whatever you happen to find. The biography sheet, like I said, I just kind of went over the basics that I do. This is just something I developed, and again, you want to be consistent when you develop something, do it the same way. It makes it easier when you look from one record to another on different people. If you've got them the same way, it's much easier and quicker to find information if they're consistently done the same. The one bad thing, well, there's two that I can think of. It continually needs to be updated, your sheets. But it's always that main way, because you're always searching, you're always going through and finding new information, but you're always having to update. But that is just a fact of life when you're doing genealogy. And this particular thing does not upload to any program, so I can't upload this. but I'm happy with it. It works good for me. When I decide to go and put something, I am not putting anything on Ancestry. When I do, I will just have to type it in, but I've been a secretary for 40 years, so it doesn't really matter to me. I can do that. But I do like, I'm happy with this because that's the way I want it to be. And you just adapt your program or your research the way you want it to be. I have other binders because not everything fits in a binder. What I did is I developed a biography sheet on everyone. Everyone I researched, and not all of them are my direct line. So you don't want them in there, especially, but you want to have record of them. So I started out again with one binder, and then I broke it down to maternal, paternal. And so I have a sheet on all my cousins, whatever I learned on any of the people I was researching, like my grandfather's brothers and sisters. I wanted that information, but I'm not going to put it with that because it's not correct. But I have a sheet on them also. And I call that my biography binders. Like I said, it's a very simple thing to do. Everything you do, and I think we all know, it's important to quote your sources. Don't ever do your research and not quote your sources, or keep your sources somewhere you know where this information came from. They are put in these binders by the surnames, alphabetical by the surnames. And when I did these under their names, they have a divider guide with each name. But when you put your papers in there, put it in chronological order of their life. You know, their birth, their marriage, their death, or their military service. Put it in chronological order. And it makes sense as you're looking at it in order. I'm a very, organization is really important to me. Otherwise, I can't handle all of this, all these papers and all this. It's just chaotic to me not to put them in order. But those binders are in by surnames and then by their first name. So you put them under the surname and then alphabetized by their first name. And it's, like I said, it's very simple. Something I developed, like I said, you need simple, logical, but simple. I created a census binder. Some things are important to you. I pulled one summer, I had a project for myself, was to pull all the census records I could find on every one of my people. And I'm thinking, how am I going to do this? So I created a census binder with a surname again, starting in chronological order with the oldest up front and working back. And you looked under the surname. My surname is Wheeler. You would find 1790 and then back. Anything I could find on them is in that binder. Now, you'll find copies of the census records in these other binders, but that's like it is accumulation of all of the census records, all of them. Let's see. I also, as a secretary, realized that when you have all these records that you really need to do an index. It's kind of a pain, but you need to do an index for the biographies. Again, a quick thing, if you want to say, well, do I have a biography on that person? All you do, look at your index and you'll know. It's just like an index in the book. It can be very basic. And I did that with the census records too. I know a very basic index to show, well, did I get 1930 on my grandparents? Do I have it on my great-grandparents? And just by looking at the index, I could tell whether I had done that or not. I also have ideas for other binders. You want your family group sheets. You want to have well, I can put family group sheets in here, but I think that I need to have a separate binder with all of the different families' family group sheets. And they can be in these, but then I have a master binder, basically a master binder of family group sheets. Another one I wanted to work on was the photographs. You don't really want to put your photographs in these binders, but you can make a paper copy and put them under the names. But you could also have a master binder of all the photographs you have. That's something I've worked on. It's not finished. somebody will ask me, well, do you have one of so-and-so? And I, here you're going through all these pictures, but if you had a binder with just a paper copy, you'd know, yes, I do have it, and I'd like to scan them in so that if somebody wants them, I can actually send them a file, through email. Another binder that I was thinking about is, the original documents you have, birth, death, marriage, some people don't want them gathered in. I like mine in, but I've been contemplating taking them out and putting in their own binder as original documents. The only reason for that, if my house was burning down, that would be the first thing that I want is all this paper, I'd want to grab something quick and take it. So I was thinking about pulling original documents out of these binders and putting one single binder that had everything in it and just putting copies in these little ones. But, there are so many ways you can use this. If there's something you're doing that you do a lot of and you want it separated out, you could have a binder separate for it. Like I said, I only have that one that one bookcase that's five shelf bookcase, and I haven't filled that. It's not full, but you can contain it. And you do have to continually go through your files and purge sometimes. The last thing I had was for the files. I do have surname files, and that's for things that I gather that don't fit, that I may use them in the future. So I have a surname file for every surname that I'm looking at, and that's just a tiny, it's a 2-drawer lateral file. And when they get thick files, I'll separate them into military records or census records or the different topics, and so that when I pull them out, I can pull out just the census one. I copy census pages and indexes and keep them and maybe refer them to them later. So I have a file for each surname on there. I also use the same file for, you gather information on your states and your counties or your areas your people are from. So I have a section with state information where a paper file, maps and different changes in boundaries and things like that you want to keep. So when I decide I'm going to work with my Pennsylvania people, I'll pull that file, the Pennsylvania file out, and I'll go to it to see if I have the information I need for my Pennsylvania area. It takes a lot of, to keep organized, it takes a lot of work, but it's really worth it in the end because you can have stacks and stacks of papers. But if you got them separated out of your people and you can use them like this, it's just so much easier than looking through that whole stack of papers. I've accumulated on that person is behind their biography sheet. There's a picture of them. I did actually, this is the group sheet I finally found online that you can actually fill out. And I've always been writing out. Yeah.
So I can just get that online.
Yes, I finally found one online. And then I researched, and it took me forever, but I found the marriage record of theirs in the newspaper. But it's just everything that I've been able to find on them. There's some, there's his death, but here's his, draft registration. And if you look at his biography, you're going to see that it's all right there. But you, like I said, you do have to continually. There's his death certificate and his obituary, and that's his other son. That's not my grandfather, but that's my grandfather's brother. And I wanted information on him, so I put his there. But I have, and then it switches to my grandmother. Tabs. I mean, it's very simple. It's so simple. I feel kind of silly telling you about this, but it works very well for me. But there's everything I found out about her. There's her driver's license.
On your folder
folders for your maternal and maternal side. So a folder would be the person that's on your pedigree chart, right?
Yes, exactly.
And then anybody else would be in your other
They would be
biography.
yes, because otherwise your binder would be full of stuff.
Right.
It's not direct. It's yours, but it's not direct. That's why I developed this. Is that I wanted information on those other people. You want, because sometimes you've got to trace them and trace yours. And so I developed that with the surnames again, and there's, as much information as I found on that person. It helps to fill out spots that you're missing, to trace them. I found a lot of stuff by looking at other family members that aren't around.
Okay, that makes sense now. That's just the direct line on your
Yes.
pedigree chart.
You would have such a mess, I think, if you tried to put
Better
everything.
question over here?
Thank you.
No Jim for me today.
Well, I started out mostly on Ancestry first, so I had already had bio sheets on each of my relatives. So what I did, similar to yours, is I set up actually file folders first,
Yeah.
and then when they got too big, then I started doing the binders. So I kind of had both. My file folders are just for generic stuff that I'm
Yeah,
finding on
that's
the
exactly.
families. And then the binders are the actual stuff on each one. And where it comes in really important on these binders, I have one that's a 4-inch binder, and it's on my great-grandmother that I have had a dead block on it for over 6 years now. And I have, the first sheet is a list from the time she was born, everywhere she lived until she died, all of her children, where they were born, and their dates and names, every husband, any vocation she had, everything. It's just like a bio cheat sheet
Exactly.
that I have that lists from, birth
It's
to
like
death
a-
on her.
it's like a
And
study
then
of
each
their life.
index is on, like, one index is her children, one index is her husband's, and one index is documents, one certificates, one census. So when I take that binder of this great-grandmother that's drove me crazy for years, I go to any library, or when I went to the Utah library, wherever I am, I have everything I need on that one person. Plus, I also have a printout of family trees of her area. So anything I need to know on her is right there. So when I start searching, I can go back to that binder, every piece, like you've set up on
Exactly.
each one.
Yes.
And it really helps your research. And I have been able to find, like, divorce certificates. I just recently found in newspaper.com a divorce petition. Only if they would have said her mother's name, that would have been really helpful, because it said she went back to live with her mother, but didn't say her mother's name. So I have no knowledge other than I know they're Chisholm. So
Thank
what
you.
you're doing is great.
Anybody else have a
Could you tell us
question?
more about your index, your system? So you have more than one index, or do
You
you
have-
collate those
You
together?
have more than one, because you have one with each. There's an index for, and it's not in there, an index for each of these biographies, the maternal and paternal, and an index that's more complicated with the census records, because you're doing not years, but you're also doing people or families, so it's more complicated. It's like a spreadsheet. It goes with this one. I don't have an index in these, but when you look at their, like I said, you always look at that biography sheet, you're going to know what I have on that person. You're going to know what's years, census record years, or I got a draft registration, or I got a military file, or a death certificate. Just by looking at his sheet, you're going to know what's there and what's not. And that's why I don't have I don't index these small ones, there's really no need, but the bigger ones, I want to know who I've got to buy on. If I need to create one, I will. Same with the census. Every summer I used to, when I had time off, I would pick a project. Okay, I'd like to have 1 year, it was the census records. I'm going to go find every census record on as many of my people as I can. I did a lot. Then I had this huge stack of papers, like, oh my gosh. And that's when I said, okay, time for another binder with that information. But the The indexes just make it so much faster when you're searching. You don't have to look through that pile of papers, or that whole binder to see, do I have that person, do I have this and that person? It's just, that's the secretary and use the index thing.
And is that on the computer too?
It is done on a computer. It's probably, one is done on Excel spreadsheet, the other is just a Word document that I've created, just as an index.
Do you use a computerized,
Program?
yeah,
I do not.
so you don't use
And
family?
I feel kind of bad about that. I tried, I did Brother's Keeper, I did Family Tree, I believe, and they kept changing them, and they never had the information I wanted. I wanted extra things on there. So I kind of gave them up, which is, it's not, I'm not saying that's a good thing to do, because you can't take my sheets and upload them. Anything I do, which eventually I will go into Ancestry and load my stuff, but being a secretary to do typing is not a big deal for me. It's just like, oh, it's just another day at work. So I feel kind of bad about that I'm not on the program. But I was so busy doing my research, I didn't want to mess with that program. I wanted to get on with the research, and this lets me do this very easily. I gather the paper, I gather the research evidence, and I enter it, even if I handwrite it on these and then go back and type them, update them later. At least I have that information there. But I'm not on the program. I should be, but I'm not. Anybody has any suggestions for me, I'd be happy to hear them.
I use Family Tree Maker, and the reason I like it is because I can just put a name in and it pops up with the records, the sheet, for the family name.
Yeah.
And then I can look back and forth because it'll actually keep pictures of the documents.
I think there are a lot of good programs, but when I was first doing this was years ago. And I would start out on one, and then they change it just enough to
Yeah.
make it hard.
Yeah.
And I don't have time for this. I want to do my research. So I kind of gave up, and I do need to go and do that. But I've got to get it on Ancestry. I know that. But I'm so busy
Because-
one research.
Yeah, Ancestry is now here.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
on your phone.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And if you're, somewhere and you have time to do research just a little bit, you
Yeah.
have Ancestry on your phone, and you can pull up the documents.
That's true. I'm kind of old school because I don't trust the computer. They crash. I've had things that I worked on for at least a week at a time at work crash. And yeah, I did update.
Well, I have an automatic backup.
Yeah, and I had one totally crash to the point they had to take the computer away. And so I'm afraid, I don't lose all that. But I like paper. I like when I read a book, I want to read it. I want it in my hand. And that's part of my problem. I'm kind of, the computer is good, but I'm afraid of it a little bit. I'm just going to imagine losing all my information because I didn't do what I was supposed to do on the computer. But yeah, I should be on a program. I will get mine on Ancestry.
It's just easier if you're traveling.
Yeah, well, I gathered up a few sheets to take with me. I went to Texas and Oklahoma, and I took some things with me. But I always dial in, okay, I'm going to work on this person in this cemetery, or I'm going to that library. I always know exactly before I go what I'm going to do. Then I take those sheets with me. And that's what I did this last time.
Just one of the things real quick here. One of the things that I like to do is I did a historical timeline with my relatives, births, deaths, and family members. And it's interesting to see what wars or what's happening in the time, so you can know maybe that's why they migrated or shipped over to another place. So that's interesting too.
Okay, so on this side you have your parents, grandparents,
Can't do
and that's your grandmother and grandfather.
And it goes all, there's the,
Fraternal. Okay, what do you do with the? Do you put the children in the same place, or you have the children over there?
okay, the children that are not directly related to me.
Yeah, directly.
I will
ones
take that, this is my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, they can go in here. if I wanted to. There are biography sheets that I create. I can put them in behind, say, my grandfather, or choose to put my grandmother at that back. But I do have, in the biography binder, is a copy of their sheet. But if you put too much in these, you're gonna, unless you're searching them, you know, if you're working on them hard. But I do have them, and they're there. If I find information, I'll gather it, and I'll report it. But I try to keep these pretty basic, because you get too much in there, and then it gets huge. Yeah. Well, that's why this is separated out. That's why I end up putting mother and father separate. And I'm logical. It's real logical to me. Okay, it's mom's side, so it'll be, you know, otherwise you get real huge ones. I had huge ones, and of course they never enough
How do you
space.
not using so much paper? I mean, I've got on for 5 foot.
Well, I do, but see, I've got it spread out. I've got it spread out as in,
Doubles.
yeah, well, I've got, you know, what's directly related to line, get rid of these little lines. Now, if I need to, like I said, all I have to do is undo that and get a bigger binder. But this so far has worked for me. But all the outside information is either going in a surname file, if it's not related to them, but I want to keep it because I am doing all this research. It goes in a surname file in my little 2-drawer lateral file at home. Of course, you've got to clean that out or you're going to have, it's just going to explode. But yeah, sometimes it gets to that point. But if you learn to take the information on the people that's directly related to you and put it
On one leg.
yeah, well, you break it out. I mean, say I got too much for my, you know, these two to be together, I can also break this out and then grandma on one and grandma and grandpa on the other. You know, I could have 2 different lines. Right now, it works pretty good because I don't have to. I have a lot on them, but I don't have, you know, out of the binder on them. But there are going to be people that you have more research on than others, so. But I try to gather everything I can. I'm kind of a OCD when it comes to the genealogy. Everybody looks at me like I'm nuts. My family, anyway. I think I'm crazy because I'm doing all this work and I go to all these places and what I want to do is go to cemeteries. I want to go to libraries. They just think I'm nuts, but it works for me. But yeah, and you know, a lot of the stuff you adapt to what you're doing. You know, breaking them down if you're working on it. You have more than just get break them out into more binders. But I really, you know, I thought when I first started, I thought, well, that 1-5-shelf bookshelf's not going to be enough, but it works pretty good. You know, it's not full yet, so it works pretty good. But you have to kind of sort things out now. All of the stuff that doesn't really pertain to them, but is part of their name, is like I said in that file instead of in binders as well. This is for me. Directly, if I'm doing my, and I'm still working on the Civil War group, you know, okay, I need information on these people. I pull it out, I just make my copies and put it with my application. I don't have to go and search through that, you know, foot-thick pile of papers I have in my house.
I can attest to that. She gave me a binder. Well-organized binder. I was like, whoa.
Any other questions? Or kind of tell me something I need to know?
Do you have a hard copy of a pedigree chart?
I have, well, I do. I have a really ugly one. I have a pretty one that's not complete because it's not big enough. And this is really bad because it needs to be redone. And I'll rewrite it, but you're always researching, and it always looks like this, I think. And the red, you see my Civil War, and you see my Revolutionary War soldiers, and you also see all my people from overseas, the red marks on there. And this is, of course, just a draft. This is not anything fancy. It's just what I take with me when I go until I've used it to death. But I've been doing this since I was a teenager, so.
One thing I've learned is not everything is on Ancestry. I've been able to find things on Family Search that I search and search Ancestry, cannot find it. So I go over to Family Search and put it in and gee, there's that marriage record. But the other thing on Family Search, if you haven't done it, if you can go to the records that have not been indexed and you can page through those will books. And yeah, that writing can be a bear. But, oh my goodness, you can find all kinds of things paging through the will books, the land records, you name it, they've got one that's not been indexed. And it really helps. Of course, you know, you just sit in front of the TV and you're paging through. If you see a name that we recognize, you stop. Melanie, thank you so much for sharing with us. The takeaway from today for me is I really need to file those papers that I've been because I have binders, and I have my files.
We have files.
I just need to take time to put things where they belong.
It's so much fun to just research. Just forget about all but you're researching for a reason.
If you're a new researcher, everybody always starts off with a file folder and a binder. And you know, you have a basic setup with your pedigree, your family group, your biography sheet. It's like a family group in a sense, but she's gone a step further with the indexing everything at the bottom of that so she knows what is in that binder, which is very helpful to do. Anyway, thank you very much for sharing.
Last summer, and you know, we always have a picnic in the summer, and last summer we tried something different, and we went to the Emmanuel Church, and it was lovely. And they had bathrooms and air conditioning and all these comforts. But this year is our 55th anniversary too, our 55th birthday for the Kern County Genealogical Society. So we are going to combine the 55th anniversary with that summer social. And we're going to do the things we did last year. We're going to have a raffle, we're going to have prizes, silent auction, and I hope we will see you all there. It will be at 5 o'clock. Bring a side dish, and we'll provide the main dish. And come and enjoy yourself. 5 o'clock.
What's the date again?
Emmanuel Lutheran Church, 1900 Baker Street, I believe. And come and have fun, because we had a ball last year. You know, our dues are $20 a year. You know, we don't raise a lot of money at $20 a year, and we want to move into the 21st century. So we are looking at some programs that will help with our technological website, but we need money to do it. So we have fun, raise a little money, have a lot of fun. So I hope to see you all there. Well done. Kathy,
And we also want to raise money so that we can have a genealogy conference. We want to be able to bring in a national speaker and hear from them, and also have some breakout sessions and do just a one-day little conference thing. So we're trying to raise money so that we can do the two things, technology and a conference. So that's what it's all about. We hope to see you in June.
Yes, we do a wonderful job.